Welcome to session 2 of the Excel for Data Science series. In this session, we will see how to enter data in an Excel worksheet and the basic formatting options that are available to us. I'm also going to start introducing you to the most commonly used shortcuts as we come across different functionalities so that in due course you can work on Excel from your keyboard without requiring the mouse. Please do practice these shortcuts as they will significantly increase your speed of execution. Okay, let's start with entering some data in the Excel spreadsheet so we can start exploring its functionalities. I'll start by entering the field name serial number in cell A1, followed by the field name product code in cell B1. Now, if you see, it seems like the field name in cell B1 is overflowing into cell C1, right? But that is not the case. This section, called the formula bar, shows whatever content is present in a particular cell, and selecting cell C1 shows that it's empty. Let's continue and enter product description in cell C1. Now, if you see, the product code and the product description are both overflowing into the subsequent columns, which does not look nice and makes the data in these cells unreadable. To resolve this, we need to resize the columns so that the entire text is readable. To do this, place the cursor at the end of the column name that you want to resize. And once the cursor turns into a double-sided arrow like this, just double-click and the column will resize. Do this to all the columns that you want to resize. To show you how to resize all the columns at one go, I'm going to undo the changes I've just made by pressing Ctrl and Z together. Now, select the name of any of the column that you want to resize and click on it. And while keeping your left mouse button clicked, drag to include all the subsequent columns that you want to resize as well. Next, put your cursor at the end of any of the column names that you want to resize, and once your cursor turns into a double-sided arrow, double-click to resize all the columns at one go. Since this is going to be a very frequently occurring task, let me press Ctrl Z one more time to undo the column resizing so I can show you the shortcut to resize columns. Now, for this, just select the text that you want to resize your column names according to and press Alt O C A. That is, press Alt, let it go, then press O, let it go, and likewise press C and A. And you see this resizes all the columns as per your selection. Quick note on this. When you resize a column using any of these ways, each column gets resized as per the selected cells with the maximum width requirement. Now, let me quickly fill up this sheet with some data so we can go through a couple of more features. Now that I've filled some data in this worksheet, let's look at some very basic formatting options. Let's start with resizing our columns as per the data that is entered. Now, I want my column headers to stand out from the rest of the data, so I will select the column headers and make them bold by either clicking the bold option here or by pressing Ctrl and B together on the keyboard. Next, I want to make my column headers italicized, so I will click the italics button here, or I will press Ctrl and I together on the keyboard. Next to the italics button is the underline button, which again I can either directly click from here or press Ctrl and U together from the keyboard. Clicking any of these buttons once or pressing their equivalent keyboard shortcuts once applies these formats, and pressing them again removes the formats. You could also fill these cells with a color of your choice and also change the color of the text. If you want to remove the color you filled in the cell, click on this down arrow next to the Fill Color button and select No Fill. And again, you could change the color of the text. Next, let's apply a simple border to all our cells with data. For this, click on the cell in the top leftmost corner and with the mouse button pressed, drag till you select all the cells that have data. Next, click on the down arrow button here and select the All Borders option. This has applied a border on all your cells with data. Let us zoom out a little bit so all the cells with data can be seen at one shot. Before we move any further, let me introduce you to another very important shortcut that you're going to be constantly using for selection of data cells in your worksheet. One way of selecting data is how we just did it with the mouse. You can also move around the worksheet from one cell to another by using the cursor keys on your keyboard. So to select the entire range, move your selection to the top leftmost cell of the desired range, hold the Shift button and press the right and down key till the entire desired range is selected. Just like this. But this would be very cumbersome if you had a lot of data on the sheet. The best way to select this range would be by the use of Ctrl, Shift and arrow keys. Let's see how. Holding the Control key and pressing any arrow or cursor key takes your selection to the last continuous cell with data in that range. For example, let's say my current selection is cell A1 and I want to move my selection to cell J1. I will hold down the Control key and press the right arrow key at the same time to move my selection to cell J1. Likewise, if I want my selection to now jump to cell J21, I will hold down the Control key and press the down arrow key once. Now, if I want to select the entire range, instead of only holding down the Control key, I would also hold down the Shift key and press the cursor key in the direction in which I want to make the selection. For instance, if I want to select column J where there is data, I would press Ctrl and Shift together and press the up arrow key. This selects entire column J where data is present. Now, if I want to select the remainder of the range with data as well, while continuing to hold Ctrl and Shift, I would press the left arrow key as well. And this selects the entire data in that range. Two quick callouts about this method of data selection before we move ahead. Point number one. In case there are any cells with missing data in your starting row or column, your selection is going to stop at that point. To illustrate this, let me delete data from two cells in the range that we will be selecting. Now, let's say cell A1 is my starting point. I press the keys Ctrl and Shift together and press the right cursor key. My selection stops at cell D1 because cell E1 does not contain any data. To continue my selection, while pressing down the Ctrl and Shift keys, I press the right cursor key one more time. And to complete the selection, while holding the Ctrl and Shift keys, I press the right cursor key one last time. Likewise, if I press the down cursor key, my selection stops on row 9 because row 10 does not contain any data. Likewise, while holding the Ctrl and Shift keys, I press down the down cursor key two more times to complete the selection. To check point number 2, let me press Ctrl and Z and get back data in the cells from which I've just deleted it. Now let me delete data from some random cells in between. Now, unless these missing data cells are not in my starting cells, row or column, it is not going to impact my data selection by pressing Ctrl Shift and the cursor keys. Practice this a couple of times so you can quickly navigate across your data in the worksheet without using the mouse. And trust me, this will increase your speed of working on Excel by a hell lot. Now, let's get back to borders. You can remove all borders from the selected range by clicking this down arrow button and selecting no border over here. Now, two most commonly used borders are all borders, and the shortcut for it is Alt HBA. And the second type of most commonly used border is the outside thick border, and the shortcut for it is Alt HBT. On applying these borders, this is how your data looks. Now, the shortcut to remove all borders from the selected range is Alt HBN. There are a lot of other border types, so please go ahead and explore them in your free time. Let's go through a couple of more commonly used formatting options together. Let's start with the alignment options here, and let's center align our headers by pressing the center align option here or by pressing Alt HAC on the keyboard. Now by default, numbers are generally aligned to the right hand side of a column and text is aligned to the left hand side of a column. But this alignment can be changed by selecting the respective options over here. Now, what does wrap text do? Earlier, we were exploring the option of resizing column width to display the entire data in the cell. But at times, it is not possible to display the entire data of a cell in a single row, and hence we need to make a cell into a multi-line cell. This is where the wrap text option comes into play. Let's consider that the width of this column could not be increased more than this. In that case, we would select all the text in this column and hit the wrap text option. This would make all the cells where there is not sufficient space to display all the data into multi-line rows. The shortcut for wrap text is Alt H W. Moving on to the merge and center option. To understand this option better, let us add an empty row on top of the column headers and bucket the column headers into categories. You can add an empty row above any given row by right-clicking on the row name and clicking on Insert. Let us further increase the height of this row by clicking here and dragging down the mouse. Now columns B and C provide product information, so let's select cells B1 and C1 and let's merge them together. Let's enter product information in this merge cell. Furthermore, columns D to H provide invoice related information, so let's merge cells D1 to H1 by pressing Alt HMC and let's enter invoice information here. Columns I and J provide customer related information, so let's merge them together and write customer information here. Let's now format these merged cells to make them stand out as categories. Let's middle align the text in the merged cells by clicking on the middle align option over here. Further, let's change the color of the merged cells and also the color of the text in them. Let's make the headers bold and let's apply all the borders by changing the color of the borders. Next, let's move on to number, which is the last basic formatting feature in this session. By using this option, we can change the format of text. Let's see what I mean by this by looking at a few examples. Column E has the invoice date, but it is currently formatted in the form of numbers. Let's select data in this column and let's select the down arrow button here and select the format as short date. This changed the data in this column into the date format. Let us now select the long date format and see what happens. The long date consists of the day, the month, the date, and the year, and this is what our column has transformed into now. You can also select a custom format by selecting the more number formats over here, selecting the custom option, and typing in the format that you want. Let's type month followed by the year, and you can see a sample of how your format would look right over here. This has applied the custom format on this column. Let us next comma separate our numbers and see what does increasing and decreasing decimal points does. This option over here decreases decimal points and this option increases the decimal points. For now, let's decrease the decimal points to 0. To illustrate what comma separation has done, let me increase this value to a large number. And you see this is now comma separated. Comma separating and taking care of decimal values increases the aesthetic representation of your data and makes your data easily readable. Since these two columns represent price and cost, let's change their format to currency. And let's reduce the decimal points. You can explore the different currency options that are available here as per your requirement. Now, conditional formatting requires a lot more time and we will cover this in a separate session. This covers the basic formatting options that you need to know for now. I hope you feel a lot more comfortable now looking at an Excel workbook and navigating through data in a worksheet. I will put a link to the Excel file used in this session in the description section and will also mention all the shortcuts we've covered there for your reference. Please practice all that we've discussed here and get more comfortable with it before moving on to the next video in the Excel for Data Science series. If you like this detailed tutorial, please do consider giving me a thumbs up. And if you're new here, please subscribe to my channel to get an update when I put up more videos in this tutorial series. Also do check out the description box for links to my other videos and also to get links to my other social media channels if you would like to follow me there. I will see you soon in the next tutorial in the series.